We're live, by the way.
Yeah. Hello, people. We're live now.
Yeah, so we had the rerun going. I didn't realize that. My fault. Um,
Still says rerun for me. Oh, but I do see
yep.
our thing. Never mind.
Yep. So it was basically still playing the previous reruns when I should have actually stopped the reruns and started the stream. So back to square one, we are going to show you how to use the items section and how to make a store. We have a bunch of library stuff that we are going to have shown you in the episodes, and Lady Shell has the links for them. We also are going to do this in honor of the winner of our contest. We put out a tweet last week or so, and it was put out as, what do people want for the content on our show? And this is the highest voted thing, which was kind of surprising to me. But people want to know how to build items from scratch. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to use various modules from our community. We have Shehob's modules. We have Rob Tui's modules. A lot of the things that he went and created in regards to the show is the 5e effects coding items package. Lady Shell will have the links for that. But that covers adventuring gear, armor, potions, rods, staffs, wands, swords, weapons and wondrous items. So that's basically one of the things that we're going to show. And then we're also going to build our own little store and build the items that go in there. So, Lady Shell, why don't you say hi to everybody, and we'll get going.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, sorry for the crazy start. We thought we were live and we weren't live. So Laerun was telling you all kinds of stuff that nobody but me heard. But anyway, we welcome you to the stream, and we hope you'll enjoy our tutorial and talking about items. And if you have any questions about items, please put them in the chat, and I will relay them to Laerun.
Okay, so let's get started. All right, so in Fantasy Grounds, you're probably going to want to start creating your own product at some point. Now, as a GM, you can create whatever you like. So that isn't a problem. You have the resources usually and the permission. As a player, you cannot. However, on your character sheet, you can create an item. So I'm going to go to the items category, which is in your inventory on your character sheet. Now, I already have a bunch of items on this particular character. I called him Mr. Item Maker. He's actually a cleric, but he has a bunch of equipment and things that normally most player characters probably wouldn't care about. But as you can see, he's got a lot of items and some weapons. He's got 2 warhammers. He's got a regular one and a +1 warhammer. So let's just say he wanted a iron block, or maybe he wants an anvil. So let's make an anvil. So this character doesn't have the anvil, and I doubt he's going to carry the anvil around because that thing weighs a lot. But he wants to have it in his inventory because it's part of his smithing tools or something like that. So what we're going to do is create the item on the character sheet. Now, anyone can do this, but how effective it is and what it actually does is another story. So what I'm going to do is click on the edit button on the bottom of the character sheet. And I'm going to click the green plus button on top, and that makes a whole new line. Now I'm going to get out of the edit mode, and I'm going to open up the item in which it's blank. There's nothing. So what you want to do here is change the title. So in this case, this is going to be an anvil. Okay. Now, the non-ID name would be if it was a unique item that maybe it's a magical anvil or something like that. But if you don't want people to know, right away what the item is unless it has to be identified, then you would just put like a regular anvil here, and then on top you would call this a magical anvil. Now, I don't know what would make it magical other than maybe it speeds up the amount of time that it takes to make something. Any notes here would be put here in case. And then you have these types. So types determine the item type that is going to be in your inventory. There is a nice wiki guide that is available online for free, and it is basically a wiki user guide to help you learn how to use the items. Now, I'm not going to quote every single thing in the wiki user guide, but it is a very handy, and it will help you learn how to use the item section. But for the sake of creating an item, we're talking about a non-weapon, a non-armor, that sort of thing. So to create the item, we name it, which we've already done. We open up the sheet and we right click, we create the item, which we've done. Then we have a new item. We've already opened that up. And then we type the name in. So there's a toggle for ID, which is if it's green, it's identified. If it's red, it's unidentified. So to you before is if you turn this on, they are only going to see the non-ID name. And if there's nothing in there, it'll say unidentified item in the inventory. So I'm just going to put anvil there. So this is a dwarven iron anvil. What makes it different is that it's solid iron and it lasts a lot longer. So now it'll say anvil here, and then when you have it identified, you click here, and in the inventory, it will now say the true title of it. So now if there's any notes, you could put that here. I could put a heavy looking chunk of iron with some worked steel or worked iron, something like that for the description. So the notes just gives a description of a non-identified item. So it doesn't give you the details. It just gives you a very rough description. So let's put,
How about you put on there, written in Dwarven, it says, blessed by Morden.
there we go. So a large block of heavy shaped iron. It also says the anvil is covered with dwarven-like runes. And that's probably all the clues you want to give them. So when it's not identified, that's the information they get. Now you're going to put your type in, and that determines which fields or which details are available to this particular item. So as a player, I wouldn't expect a player to know all this. And the cleaner way to do this is in the items menu area and then drag it to the character sheet. But sometimes as a player, you have to be able to create your own material on the fly. So I don't know how much an anvil weighs, so I'm going to do a little research.
I'm guessing it's at least 30 pounds. So would the type be adventuring gear?
Maybe.
because looking at the list, I don't see anything else that really seems like it would fit.
Yeah. So some anvils weigh around 239 pounds.
Holy I said 30 pounds. Mine's a
There
little
are
mini
different
man.
size ones, but anvil blocks, the big ones, they usually weigh over 200 pounds. So I'm going to say 250 pounds for this thing. Now, hopefully you won't be carrying this around. If you do, you're going to need a wagon.
Or a Goliath.
So here, he's already passed his weight maximum. So I'm going to change the symbol to not carried so it doesn't affect his weight. So he still owns it. He's not carrying it around. Now, the rarity would just probably be like uncommon or rare. So that's something to keep in mind. But for the type, we need to know what it is. And it's recommended that you stick with any descriptions that are like in the gears. So adventuring gear, tools, tack and harness, those sort of things. So we're going to call this a tool. So tools would probably be a good, it could be adventuring gear or something like that, but it's really not adventuring gear. This is more of a tool. So let's put that. And if you're unsure, you can go to an existing item. Let's look at items. And let's take a look at tool. Let's see if we can find one. So here's some artisan tools. Okay, so you cannot open these up if they are part of a official book. So what I'm going to do is take this and drag it in here. So now I made a copy of the artisan tools. Now it's not part of anything. So if I have this, now I can unlock it and take a look. So yes, you were correct, Lady Shell. It is under adventuring gear and it is a standard subtype. So you can copy and paste this information.
Is the anvil part of the artisan tools? Or not artisan tools, part of the smithing tools?
No, I think the smithing tools is everything but the anvil.
It's probably the stuff you used to hit
Yes.
the anvil. The like pick
Rarity,
up stuff with the tongs.
right. So rarity is probably uncommon. So you wouldn't necessarily see this anywhere. As far as gold piece cost goes, you got to figure the value of iron plus the size of it and the sheer weight and how much work it took to get it shaped correctly. So honestly, I would say something like this should be at least 100 gold, if not more. So depending on the usefulness of it, how big and heavy it is, how much it costs to transport it from where it's made to where it's going to reside. Hopefully, it doesn't have to be moved very often. I would determine the cost on that. So my guess is going to be about 150 gold. I think that's a fair deal. So, and then you want to put a description in there. So you can kind of borrow some descriptions from other tools. So it says these special tools include the items needed to pursue a craft or trade, blah, blah, blah. The table shows examples of the common types of tools, each providing items related to a single craft. Proficiency with a set of artisan tools lets you add your proficiency bonus to any ability. So this isn't quite a tool, I would say, but it's close enough. So I would just put the description of the anvil, and then I would give it deeper description on what the or the dwarven runes actually say. So that would be something that you could add to the item description. So let me find out what a good description for an anvil is. Now the dwarven anvil would be something that would probably be pretty much stationary. So unless you were going to move or set up shop, it's basically one of those things where you
Yeah, I
would
don't see a traveling blacksmith. That's
no.
kind of, yeah.
So okay, so dwarven anvil. It's used to combine um, two or more items to improve them. So it could be all kinds of different substances. So that's one function of it. So you need a dwarven anvil and dwarven tools to create dwarven magic items sometimes. So in your world, it may be that it is a catalyst or a method of trying to create some lore into the background of your setting. So you can probably use this information to kind of give your anvil a story. So rather than just give it a description, you can actually include some kind of lore. Maybe it is kind of magical in properties. So there's potential that this particular item might be something useful in your setting and it ties in with the lore.
How about if it was found in Mithril Hall?
Now that would be like the high anvil of the dwarves or something like that. So that's something that, you know, would be really useful. So I'm reading in the 1970 or maybe 1984 Encyclopedia Magica. The This is from TSR. The anvil is a heavy iron block that has a flat top and a round horn-shaped end. Blacksmiths heat metals until they soften, and they use the anvil's surface to hammer the metal into a desired shape. Magical anvils, however, can be of any size, shape, or weight, and they are commonly used to perform functions other than those performed by their non-magical counterparts. So there is an example from Dragon Magazine, number 58, as a matter of fact, that is worth it's worth 50,000 gold, and it's the high anvil of the dwarves. It is a metal crafter's dream to own this. It's a legendary item, and there's probably only one of them. It's probably super rare, and it is basically left for specific dwarves that only certain ones can create the items. And it's usually a high priest or somebody in the know that has four apprentices or people helping. And it usually takes about 1d4 plus 4 days to enchant the item. And then that also doesn't include the 24 to 36 months that it takes to get everything together. So there's a ritual that takes place at the end. So there's usually some assistants, a high priest of at least 6th level or higher, and some sort of enchantment or ceremony. So this is kind of gives you an idea of how far you could take this. So you would probably just put the base description and then the magical lore that goes with it. So this one is just going to be a common dwarven anvil. It's used to forge weapons, tools, and items for their clans. So this isn't like the big magical hoopla. It also has some runes on it, like Lady Shell suggested. So the runes say something like, it says, Dwarven runes carved on its state, blessed by our Forge Father Moradin. And I'm going to put that in italics. So this is just an example of creating your own item in your inventory. So as a player, you can make this, but you kind of have to know the properties. In most cases, people don't really pay attention to it. They just make something for a note. That's fine, but if you really want to get into it, you would add some lore to it and a weight and some properties to it. So that is just one example of creating an item. Now, the other way I'd mention is to actually create the item in the items area. So this area would be where you'd want to create that item. To see right now, there's a broken link potentially. So if this item is not available in the items, it will probably disappear after the campaign's done. So we'd want to make our own section or our own group. And this is handy for when you want to start building your own store or your own campaign items. So I'm going to change right now. Right now I'm in all, which shows everything I have loaded. So I'm going to use the drop down menu and I'm going to click on the edit groups and I'm going to click the green plus button. And all the things that we make today are going to end up in this group 1. So we're going to call this the item store. Don't really have a good name for it. There's no lore other than, showing you guys how to do this. So here's the item store. Nothing in it. It's blank. I'm going to drag this anvil over here and see if it'll populate. And it did. So this is now an anvil, and it will be part of this campaign if I make my own section, and it ends up being a part of the module that I might make. So in order to make a module, you have to make a group first, and then any custom items you make, they should go in here. So now if you want to sort this out, you have all these search functions, and then you also have these templates up here, and you have the forge. So you can narrow this down to just armor, just weapons. The templates are used for the forge. So if you click on item template, there's a direct shortcut to forge. And this is where you would create magic items. And we'll go over this shortly, but this is a way to combine items to create a magic item. And there are some rules and different approaches to using it. So what do you think we should do next, ladies? So we made a regular item, and I'd made it on the character sheet to illustrate that you can make an item on your character sheet, but it takes a little know-how.
How about let's make a magical weapon.
Okay, so I'm going to pull up a list of items. Let's see. So Lady Shell has kindly made her own graphic that we are going to look at throughout the show. So this has a list.
Magical battle axe.
Yeah, we can make a magical battle axe. So here, if you click on this link, this is a shareable link to your players. So what she's done is she's developed a store-like list using a popular graphics program. And then she's put the weight, or excuse me, the cost, and then any kind of artwork that you want to add to the store. You don't have to have it this generic, but this makes it easier to read, and it's spaced so that there's room for the pins. If you make the titles too close to each other, then the pins get really crowded. So the reason why you have these pins is so that your players can use these as like they're going to a store. So for instance, if this was part of our store, I'm going to create a story entry. And we're going to also make a new group in here called the item store. So this is the beginning of the module. This is where everything's going to get grouped to. So here's an item store. Really nothing in there yet, but I'm going to make a new story entry, and it's going to aptly be named the item store. All right, so here I'm going to list the link here. So instead of calling this streaming items, because that's the default title, I'm just going to call it the item store menu or something like that. And it's a handout. So handout, comma, the item store menu. Over on this side, if you don't want the players to see the entire title, I'm just going to put this, meaning this highlighted area, item store menu. And then I lock it. So now this is going to be linked to the actual item store story entry. So now if I close this, it brings it back up. So this is going to be the menu. Now this menu has the player in mind. So these are all these pins on here are links to custom parcels. So parcels are treasure groupings within Fantasy Ground. So it's like a treasure chest. And what we've done here is a way to auto deduct gold or items from somebody's inventory. This is set up to do that. So what you do is you create the item, you drag it into the parcel, and I'll show you how to make a new parcel shortly. And then you put the negative value of the item. So in this case, this item maker guy, let's say he has 200 gold. So if that's the case, and if he grabs this battle axe, he drags this whole thing, not just the battle axe, but the whole parcel. And once that happens, it shows the deduction. So it took away 10 gold, and he now has the battle axe. So that's how that works. So now we're going to make a magical variety of this item. So we're going to close this. So the magical battle axe would be very similar process. So you already have a base. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So if I bring up the battle axe, this one, which is probably part of Lady Shell's module, I'm able to unlock it already. But I don't want to change this one because it's actually already part of the module. I don't want to break this. So I'm going to make a copy of it. So there's the regular battle axe. And I'm going to use the second one to become a magical one. Now it's not available on the store, but I'm still going to create a magical variation of it. So the battle axe is part of a normal item that's on the store. If you wanted to sell it, you could just say, put an asterisk on here. Anything magical or anything has to be negotiated in the store. So the price would vary. So it wouldn't be a published price. And there might be a price range. So I'm going to click on Battle Axe and I'm going to unlock it. Now we're going to put Battle Axe on the non-ID name. And I'm just going to put finely crafted. So it says this battle axe is nicely made with dwarven symbology and runes covering the shaft. That's about all I would put for the notes. So when you click on the non-ID, that's the only information they'll get. They'll get a finely crafted battle axe, and they won't get the true title. So what we're going to put here is dwarven battle axe, comma, +1. So then under rarity, see, we left the weapons in here because that's the type, and the subtype is a martial weapon. So that's important to have that in there. That determines the category that the items menu segregates the items. And if you want to know more about that, on the wiki, it says to create a weapon. In the type, you have to put weapon in there, and that opens up more boxes with extra dialogue. So when you put your type in the category there for the item, this type determines the fields that are available to you as you're creating this item. So there's the different fields. So if you change this field up here to something else, like adventuring gear, you're not going to have all these different buttons and or fields to fill out. So now that it says weapon, we're telling it what type of weapon. So what happens is when you drag this over to your character sheet, Fantasy Grounds will parse it correctly and consider that a martial weapon. Now on the rarity, that helps determine the cost. So I'm just going to put rare here. And there's a cost table somewhere in the, I believe it's the Dungeon Master's Guide that tells you where the rarity market would be. So it gives you a rough idea of a range or a multiplier. So if this cost is normally 300 or for 10 gold, if a rare item is times 3 or times 30% or whatever you want to say for your economy, then you would probably change the cost here. So I'm just going to say it's 30, so it's going to be 300. So now it's 300 instead of just 10. So it was a very high markup on it. Now the weight shouldn't change much. However, if it's made of adamantium or a lighter material, you can probably take a pound off of it. If it is, right now it's kind of negligible. I think 2 pounds is a little light for a battle axe, but that's just me. I would think a battle axe of that nature would be at least 3 to 5 pounds, but they just have their own generic system of adding weight. So I will stick with 2 pounds, and being that it's dwarven make, I can live with that. Now the bonus is going to be +1. Now this particular weapon is blessed by Moradin because it was made at a special forge. So it's not the anvil that we just created, but it was made at the one that I mentioned earlier, which was the high anvil of the dwarves. So they went through a ritual to bless this item. The craftsmanship alone makes it +1 because of the weight, the balance, the material, and the care that was put into making it, you can get up to +1 on most items. So it's like a super, super high quality weapon. So it's super sharp, it's very balanced, and it has a lot of decor. And the decor that's on there is usually functional and not just for looks. So it's really nice. Now, the next thing is it's going to need an enchantment to make it permanent if you're going to add anything else to it. And I really believe that +2, +3 items would require a lot more time and probably require like a gemstone or some sort of runes or something to boost up the actual potency of it. But in this case, +1 and below is usually fine craftsmanship. Anything above that is going to take some extra skill and knowledge and also material components. So they might have to dip it in some kind of magical blood of some dragon or something like that. But in this case, this battle axe is just finely crafted, and it is going to be awarded to a highly successful dwarven warrior that has been very beneficial to the clan. So they are going to imbue it with the ability to do more damage, which would be force damage in this case. So when you strike with it, it has a little extra oomph behind it. So instead of just 1d8 slashing, it is going to be also adding the force damage. So in the damage field, it's going to say 1d8 slashing plus you have to put plus here. You're going to leave damage out because all you need is 1d8 slashing plus, in this case, 1d4 force damage. Then down below, you're going to put the lore in here. And I'm going to change the name of this Dwarven Battle Axe of Force. Actually, instead of doing that, because it's too generic, I am going to add Moradin's Fist. Or actually, no, let's say, because Moradin's Fist would be more like a hammer. How about Moradin's Axe or something like that? Or, I don't know, what do you think, lady, for a title for the weapon? We need a good name.
I've been thinking to myself, and I can't think of anything that would be like a slashing or whatever thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, the hammer would have been a better thing, but
yep.
I stuck battle axe on there, so hmm.
So how about Moradin's Teeth? Or Tooth?
I like that.
Moradin's Tooth. Or, well, that's a not slashing though. Moradin's Claw, maybe? I don't know. Moradin's Fingernail. um, that's more chopping, which is kind of a slashing type thing. Yeah, so let's put we can just put like see, it's got a force behind it, so it really has some weight to it, and it really packs a punch. So we can just call it like a blade of Moradin or something like that, or Moradin's axe or something. I don't know. Battle axe of Baranar. Or we can name it after the clan. I mean, it could have so many different names. I'm just gonna put Moradin's Tooth, I guess.
Could have had, since you mentioned that it was blessing, I was going to suggest that you had, instead of your not bludgeoning, instead of your force damage, I was going to suggest putting radiant damage. Then you could have had some kind of like blessing of Moradin or something, and it wouldn't even have to say anything about, you know, slashing or piercing or
Okay, I changed it.
whatever.
I changed it. So now it says 1d8 slashing plus 1d8 or 1d4 radiant damage. So now it's going to say Moradin's Blessing. So that's the name of this item. And then if you have to, in parentheses, you can put Battle Axe.
But the what you call it name is just says finely crafted battle axe, right?
Yes. So now if I lock this, and if I drag this over, it's just going to say finely crafted battle axe. So on your actions tab, it's not going to give you all the blessings of it.
Doesn't Fantasy Grounds give it a actual? Did it give it the gold piece total, or did you put in the 300?
I put it in.
Okay.
So I didn't use the
Also,
forge.
thanks to Drake for the 100 bits.
Cool. Thank you, Drake. So now what's happening is that this particular item is not identified, so you're not going to benefit from the primary, or you'll get the primary benefit, but you won't get the secondary or the tertiary benefit. So if you want those, you have to have the item identified. So you go to somebody, they look at it and they say, oh, wow, that's a very powerful looking blade created by such and such clan. They give you the history, or they give you the actual enchantment, the way to attune to the item. So once you're attuned to the item, you understand what's happening. Then what you're going to do is, see, this only says finely crafted blade. It does still give you the different aspects here. But in the properties, I need to change it to magic. So versatile, comma, magic. And then I'm going to take it off of here. And now I'm going to identify it. So I forgot to put the magic property in here. So now when I drag it over, it says Moradin Blessing +1. Yeah, see, now it added magic to both of those. So that's not what I wanted. So that does not go there. It goes up here. So that should take care of it. I put mage. That'll help.
Did you say that you need to be attuned to this weapon before it
Yes.
will give you the magical
Yeah, so there
properties?
should be an
Yeah, I
attunement
don't
thing.
see where would that be on your
That's
item.
usually if you put magic weapon, I think that's what does it. So there's a property in the subtype, I believe, that would probably give you the extra field for it requires attunement. That's probably what it is. So in this case, so if you find an item and it needs attunement, then that's a field that comes up, or it could be a description would say requires attunement in the description. So now if I drag this over, let's see what happens. So there's the battle axe. Get rid of that one for now. There we go. But still didn't add magic. What's going on here? Huh. Well, it needs to have the magic saying in here, and that could very well be because I have the wrong template. So in this case, this item would not be considered magic unless we were able to put that in the properties. So 1d8 slashing plus 1d4 radiant damage. So that didn't help. So now you have to go to a magic weapon from the actual SRD, and let's look at the properties of it. Let's see what I did wrong here. So if I go to all, and let's just look at the arrow +1, or arrow catching shield, or something. Let's see, let's do a +3 arrow. Okay, this is ammunition +3. Okay.
Is this just a template?
No,
You're
these
making
are
maybe.
no, these are examples.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I thought, well, maybe if it was just a template, maybe that's why it wouldn't be working.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so let's open this up. Yeah, it just says weapon, ammunition, very rare. So it doesn't give you a field for that. So I got to think of an item that requires attunement. So obviously this one doesn't.
Something in wondrous items.
Yep. So type would be legendary. And let's go with Belt of Storm Giant. Let's see how they handle that. So it's a wondrous item, legendary, requires attunement. That's why, because it doesn't necessarily, it's a note. Yeah, rarity, under there, that's where it goes. Okay. So I kind of had it right. Where's the magic part? See, I'm not seeing any sort of magic, because this doesn't do magic damage. So that's not required for this.
That's because it's a belt, not a weapon.
Exactly. So, is there anything? Rod of Lordly Might. Here's a spear. It requires attunement. It is magic. So it says properties, thrown, versatile. Let's see what happens. So here's the spear. So here, oh, it's a rod, but then the subtype is a weapon. Got it. So then they changed that to a weapon subtype. So it doesn't say martial or simple weapon. It just says weapon. And then there's the gold range cost and 1d6 piercing. And then in the properties, it says thrown, versatile, comma, magic. So when I added it here, though, it added magic twice. So that's because I already have 2 damage types. Huh, interesting. So the way they have items and weapons is a little goofy, but here's the Vorpal Scimitar. Let's see what that looks like. So this is a Vorpal blade. I'm going to unlock it. So this is a Noble Scimitar, has the notes on there. It's a weapon, it's a martial weapon. The rarity is this legendary. It says 1d6, finesse, comma, magic. So I did it right. It's just that it adds the magic field to both lines when it's not necessary. But it's not going to hurt anything. And being that this item isn't that big of a deal, you would just put the requires attunement if it was like very rare or something like that. Or if it was +2 or something. So there you go. So that is the item. It does not require attunement. And it is, I'm going to delete this. Here we go. So that's everything on there, plus it parsed in that. There we go. Cool. All right. So that's the item for the magic item. So that is interesting. Learn something every day in this channel. So I don't mind fumbling around and going through these steps because this is the learning process. I'm not even well versed in this. This is why one of the reasons why we did the contest is to kind of get an idea of how to do this. Um, Also, we have a video that Matt put out that is very well done, very descriptive. Lady Shell has the link for it in the chat. That actually describes the process of how to use the forge and how to use items and the parcels. And it's very well done. A little less visual, but a lot more exciting, deep down information in there. So we're kind of recapping what he's done already. So now that's the battle axe, and we made a magical variation. So now we have the blowgun needles, we have a case, map, or scroll. We can do a parchment, leather armor, and scroll. So let's just say that for now, we have these items in our store. So let's open up the store. So here's the item store. So these are the items that are in our store. Not that many, but there's a few. So basically, what you want to do is link these to the story entry. Just to have them available, you can link them, or you can just link the description, however you want to do it. But in this case, we link this item here, and we're going to make this a parcel. This actual one they want to buy this. So what we're going to do is on our menu, we would have changed the text ahead of time that says, if you want to use this, you have to be able to add, 30 times the value or something like that. So here we've done this. You could directly link this item into the story. So you have your store items for sale. You could individually link them here. Or to make it simpler, use the menu like Lady Shell had made. So those would be like the items for sale. And then you could highlight this, make that bold. So this would be an example of creating some items in your store. Now, another thing you can do is you can make a table. So if you had a pricing table, you can actually create that within the story entry. So you can make the header. You can make your own price menu. So you put the item name. You could put the location, wherever you wanted, what store it's in, whatever you wanted in the second column. In this case, it'll just be the price. And then a third column would have notes.
Maybe the third column could show how many are available in the town.
Right, the rarity or whatever. That's a good idea. So item name, and then you have your price and your notes. So you can highlight these. And this makes a table like thing here. to create a table, it's Control 6. And then you hit, I believe, Alt Tab. And if you want to make other columns bigger and other ones smaller, you need to click in the cell. And then I believe you need to click in the cell if you want to make the cell smaller. And you would hit like, I think it's Shift and the plus and minus button.
Can you make your cells like with the colored, not a colored background, but I mean like so that it stands out from the cells that are going to be below it, that would be clear. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you
Like,
can make those
like our
bold.
powers, how our powers have a
Yep.
color. I guess the word I mean is like more like a shade rather than like
No,
clear.
the reference manual, you can do that, I think.
Okay.
But this you can't. But there's a way you can modify these fields. So like price, you probably wouldn't want it this wide. You widen your window, it's pretty wide. So what you would do is there's a command where you can click in the cell and there's a shortcut. I forget if it's Control Plus. There's a way
Which
to
could
shrink
help you,
these.
but I've never used tables in my things. I've only used the
Yeah, there's a
links
shortcut.
and yeah.
So we have an actual document in FGC that has all the shortcut keys. So if you're interested in how to format, there is a way to shrink and expand the cells. But for now, I'm just going to put just an idea of what's happening here. So that is basically how you would do that. And then you would list the items and the price. You probably want it to match your graphic. So if your store was like this, it would match up from here. And you'd put the battle axe, the price, and then maybe some notes like maybe they're out of stock or whatever. Or waiting for new supply. Could be like a status type thing. So I give you an example of a store that's already completed. So I'm going to go to the library and I'm going to go to the store's handbook and I'm going to go to the reference manual. And what this does is it lists a bunch of stores that this individual has created. This is Andrew Kaywood. He's the publisher. The graphics were by Jeff Potter, and Rob Toohey and Walking Dude did the conversion. So there's the cover for it from the DM's Guild. So let's go to a general store. So if you click on this, it shows the general store. It has there's a sign for it. So there's their graphic. This is just in case you want to share that with your players. And here's Samson. So this is a story entry with the pricing and the items as I was showing you before. So here's another store called The Goods. It gives you the staff, the languages that they're capable of speaking, and the type of customers they hope to bring in. And then it gives you a basic description. So this store called The Goods is a large wooden table in the center of a sizable settlement. The Goods is a busy store and the staff are quite knowledgeable. It has one long counter where purchases for larger goods happen and many hive shelves fill the rest of the store. The wealthy owner, Gen, is often at the store helping customers. 4 armed guards stand at the entrance. So it kind of gives you an idea of what's in the store. I would take this even further and do something like Lady Shell and some of the other communities have done and made a menu. So when you go to the store, you can share that graphic with your friends or your allies, and you can even preload this. So if I right click on this and I know that my players are going to be shopping, on this particular episode or this session, I would definitely go to sharing and then preload the image. And then when they get on the table, you right click it, share the sheet, and then they have access to it. And since these pins are shared, they also get access to parcels. So as an example of how this works is I would take this acid vial that's 25 gold. Okay. So she doesn't have an acid vial on here. So let me find something that would match. Oh, component pouch. I thought this had a component pouch. Nope. So here's a map. Anything on here that matches? Wouldn't you know it? Not
I've
one
got a
thing.
scroll and a case.
Well, a case is for a map or scroll case. This is an actual map. This is what holds it. It's a container. So let me see. Anyway, so I'm just going to add it to here. So to make a parcel, by first you have to have the items made. So in this case, I think I'm just going to add one of our already made items. We're going to do the Morden's Blessing Battle Axe. So what I'm going to do is create a parcel. So I'm going to open up Parcels, drop down menu. I'm going to click the Edit button, click the plus button, and we're going to call this the Item Store. Okay, here's the Item Store. Now I'm going to make parcels. So I'm going to create a new item. This is a blank parcel. So I'm going to put Morden's Blessing. Hold on here. So that's the name of the parcel. Now I'm going to take Morden's Blessing, drop it in there. It's already identified, so I don't have to worry about that. And now I need to look the value. In this case, it was 300 gold. So negative 300. So that's the cost. So now what you would do is pin this item to the graphic. Right now it's not available. What we could do is leave it that way. And then we would have an unknown or maybe a reserve. So let's say the customer goes into the store and says, hey, I'm looking for a battle axe, but I need something a lot more special. So then the DM would share the link, and now the player would have access to the parcel. So once he was able to get access to it, he can come to his inventory. You can open up this thing here. Let me delete these. And he could drag this over. So now it's deducted the gold. So now he's negative 110 gold. So he owes the guy money. So if the guy's nice, he'll sell it to him and tell him he can pay the rest later or do a quest for him.
Isn't that guy a dwarf? He could say, hey.
You know what?
You know, we're
He
from
can
the
give
same
him a
clan.
he can give him a 10% discount.
Hey,
So
I
now
married your niece. Come on, give me
okay,
money.
50% discount. So he still owes him 50 gold. Dwarves are stubborn. They're not going to give up their gold that easily. So this would be an
turns
entry.
to his wife and says, "Hey, can I borrow $50?"
Now the next thing is I'm going to use the forge. Now the forge is a way to create items with an already existing item. The main thing that people don't realize is there are templates. So you have to use templates first. So you go and look at your templates, which is listed in items. So here on top, I want to select all because I want access to everything. And I'm going to click templates. This is what's required in order to add to an item. So here are some ammunition types. So let's just say you wanted to, or +1 armor, whatever it is. So these are generic enough where it will combine with other regular armor. So here's this is light, medium, or heavy subtype. It's rare. Here's the cost and gives you a rough description. So it never rusts or deteriorates and magically resizes to fit its user. That's really nice. So what you're going to do is put this in the templates area because that's what this is. Now, Lady Shell and I were talking about creating more templates because you're kind of limited to what you have. I mean, they have a pretty good array here of different things. Like here's some dwarven plate. Okay, so this is armor, but it gives you +2 armor class, so we don't need to add that. So this is a template. So what we want to do is look for a standard item. So let's go with what? Chain?
Yeah, chain. I mean, you don't want it too heavy. I mean, you're a dwarf, right?
Yeah. If
You're not
at the
gonna be
most,
carrying around 100 pounds of armor.
no, probably half plate if you're going to wear plate armor. So chainmail. So they are very compatible because they're both armor type. So this chain is this item. It's heavy armor, 75. It weighs 55 pounds. The armor class is 16. You have disadvantage on stealth. It gives you the bit basic description. So now that you have both of those items,
Does that thing have anything to do with where you have to have a certain strength to wear it?
it says 13, strength 13. Yeah, it does. The armor template doesn't, but the chainmail does. And this is for +1 magic, is what the template's for. But it goes to armor. So now when you click forge item, you got this green check, which means it worked. And now you have +1 chainmail armor. So it has the +1 bonus. It's rare. It even calculated a cost. It has the heavy armor tag. And if you unlock it, it gives you all the particulars. So disadvantage, strength, dex bonus doesn't say. 16. But you could put +2 here for dex bonus, which means you would have a maximum of +2 for a dex bonus. In this case, you don't get any bonus. And then you could
In my case, as a dwarf, I would like additional charisma, please.
So this is
Yeah,
just
I
a.
could just see chainmail with charisma on it.
But you could make some wacky combinations, and Matt goes through that in our video very in depth. But we're just trying to show you the different things that you can do with items. So you can make your own stores. So that's kind of important to know that. So a store would be a group of items that you put in your story entry and that you put in your items category. So let's look at the items. And then also parcels. And then you'd have graphics too for your menus.
Weren't you going to show how to add a graphic to an item too?
Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you. So let's just say you have a map. So let's make a map. Okay. So I'm going to put a scroll for right now for a base item. So this is a standard item. So Lady Shell already has it made. So here's a scroll. This is also the item that's on her graphic for the item store, in which there's a parcel. So you got to remember all these things are connected. So I'm just going to make a copy of that item. So here in the item store, I'm going to drag this to the items in the item store. Let's see. Okay. That's maps and images. There's parcels. Now I got to go to the items. Okay. So I'm going to drag this over there. Now this is not going to be a scroll any longer. This is going to become a map. So I just use scroll as a template. So if you open this up, it'll say scroll. It'll be a map scroll. So in other words, it's a folded up or rolled up map. The non-ID, I can just put ancient map or old map, I should say. It's adventuring gear, it's standard. Rarity would probably be rare, because this is going to be a treasure map, or perhaps a regional map. We'll just do regional. So it's going to say uncommon. So I increased the value a little bit. Okay, so here you can actually link a photo of a map. So in the item store, in the images, I'm going to link a map here. So I'm going to find some kind of map that I want to link. You want to make sure that the map size or the image size is roughly 1000 by whatever. So the width is no wider than 1000 and the height is no higher than 900. So that is a recommended size for a handout. So you want a map that's roughly that size or smaller. And you don't want it too small because then your players can't see it. So let me see. So I have a JPEG that's for my Ice World campaign I'm working on. So I'm going to, dang it, it actually opened that. Didn't want that to happen, it opened. So right now I'm on my hard drive and I'm going to link the map to the story area, or excuse me, the maps and images. Okay, so I had the right idea, but let's see. So now I'm going to link the map in here once I pull it in here into the images area. So there's the map. So I want to look at it first. It's a pretty good sized map. So this is a regional map of Winter World. So basically this is the regional map. I might put a grid on it. So I'm going to go to layers, click on set grid. I'm not going to use squares. So let me change that. I'm going to use hexes. I don't have a scale set, but I'm just going to put them on here anyways. Okay, so I'm just going to make this 50, and we'll say that 50 of, size of this hex is roughly going to be 100 square miles or whatever that calculates into. So across it'd be like about 100 miles. So there's your grid. And of course, you'd probably have a key set up and maybe some locations pinned on here. So this would be the regional map. And then I'm going to take this regional map and link it to this scroll case map. But I want to make sure first that I have this preloaded. So I'm going to right click on it and go to sharing and click preload. That way, when it is shared, it's already loaded in the background. And see, it's already preloaded. So now what'll happen is I'm going to drag this map into the link here. So I'm going to put a description.
You do that so that, like, if you had somebody that was far away from where you were, that it would load faster for them, so they're
Yes,
not like waiting 5 years for their
yes,
images.
exactly.
Too bad it doesn't have an X on it somewhere.
So then you would just link this image from here. I'm going to resize this, it's too big now. So here would go to the ice world. So there you go. So now you lock it, and when the person has it in their inventory, so let's bring up the character. I'm going to drag this over. And then you could go to this regional map and they can click on the link. They can pull up the map for themselves. So if you had a ranger or a guide or somebody that has a map, this would be a good way to share it with just them and not the whole group. So maybe you have a rogue that has his own dungeon map sketch or something like that. So that is a way that you can add images into your items. Sometimes if you have a really good supplement, there will be links to what the items look like inside that area as well. So you might see a picture of a scroll, and then pinned to that picture is the actual image of the map. So you can get really deep and fancy with those.
When I was doing Mystery of the Trollsphere, which I'm still working on, I have the Pickle Pete's Inn and Tavern, and the food that you can buy in the tavern. I originally did have pictures, like you're demonstrating there, of the food in but I think I took them out.
Yeah, I
But
think
I
it was a
might put them
pain.
back in when I finally do it.
Yeah, it can be a real pain to manage all that. Just remember that if you make a change somewhere, you have to change it the other place too. So there's no
Good tip.
shortcutting. So if you change the base item, everything else has to be changed. If you change the top level item, then you only have to change that and chase it down to make sure it's right. But if you change the very base item, you have to change everything that it's linked to pull in the changes. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. Um, I think that'll kind of give people an idea how to deal with items. There are a lot more resources out there for you. Like Rob 2E did all the magic items, so I will show that for a second. So if you have a magic item or some kind of thing and you wonder where the heck all the abilities are for it, so I'm going to go to the library and I'm going to pick, let's say, a staff or a wand or something. So here's a wand. You go to the story, it goes the instructions, and it tells you you can directly from the spells tab list the item in your actions tab. So what's happening is if you got a wand of magic missiles, let's say that, and I'm going to go to the spells area and use the drop down, and you're going to go to the effects coding items for, in this case, wand, and then there's the wand of missiles. So this isn't just an item, this is part of an item. So if you wanted to do this the right way, it tells you have 7 charges. So I'm going to bring this item into this section, but I want to make a new group. So I'm going to go ahead and click this edit button, click the star. So here's the magic items, and I'm going to drag this over. So now it already set up the item usage, and when I get out of the edit mode and I change it to combat and actions, you actually have the spell for this item.
Does that wand recharge every day? Because I think in our Dragon Heist game,
It
we have
says
our
it
boss
starts,
has one.
the wand regains 1d6 plus 1 at dawn.
Oh, cool.
So you have to
Yeah,
roll.
because I know she gets stuff back after long rest or something.
So that's the item. But now you have to actually drag the spell into this area. So now there is the actual thing that does the damage. So there's the magic missile force. So it's a 2-part thing. You have the item, which can keep track of how many usages, and then you have the actual missile attack, which is just basically a spell. So that is how you would keep track of this particular wand. So it's a spell effect or a condition attached to an item. So anybody could make their own, but Rob's went ahead and done all of them, everything. There might be a couple stray items out there that's in the new books that he may not have seen, but 99% of them are done. So that includes potions, all kinds of things. And a lot of it has to do with the wording also of the items. So if you're trying to make your own codes, you have to learn how to do all the wording for them. So for instance, this force, if you open this up, it's 1d4 plus 1 force. So that is basically just a damage effect. But if you add casting and all the other stuff, you have to add that as well. So some spells are some spell abilities or effects are 3 different things. There's a targeting and attack or saving throw. There is the actual damage, and then there's a condition. So it all depends on what it is that the item does. But if you don't want to go through and make all your own, you can get those item codings package. So is there any questions on the chat, Shell?
I don't see any. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, Celestian said the image size was 1,000 by 700. Yep. And if you guys, like I said, there's a lot of good resources out there. There's been like 3 videos put out there by different authors. I know that Rob, Digital Dave, and our own Mattekure. Yeah, they should include those item effects in the actual module, in my opinion. Yes, I agree. All the stuff should be included, but it's one of those things where the Wizard of the Coast is only going to give you what they have. It's up to the developer to take it to the next step. So if Smite works or in this case, a community developer wanted to do that, they can. There's nothing limiting them that other than not having the knowledge on how to do it. So yeah, join our server if you're watching on Twitch or later on video on demand, or perhaps on our YouTube channel, which is Fantasy Grounds College as well. Yeah, check us out. And on the YouTube, I noticed I did a search for Fantasy Grounds making items in Google. It brought up a video of Digital Dave. It brought up a video of some other guy that I haven't seen yet. And then it brought up one, I think, of Rob Tui when we did our All Things Fantasy Grounds show. And then Mattekure's video, which is a very thorough thing on how to use parcels and explains all the different damage types or the item types. So there's a lot of information out there. So if anybody else has any questions or comments or complaints, let me know. This will go up on YouTube later. This is just a really rough overdraft of how to do these things. Like I said, you can take some classes here, or you can watch our videos for the DM 102 class, I believe, is where Matt teaches that. So, any other questions, and I'll call it a day.
Well, I don't have a question, but I would like to plug our upcoming event, which will be on February 2nd. And we will be streaming an event called Mappers Delight 2, where we will be talking with several different mappers. They'll be talking about their background, how they got interested in making maps, and we'll get to see some of the work that they did.
Right on.
You
So
can't hear me?
now we can.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Now I sound like the Verizon guy, only he's the Sprint guy now. Um, anyway, yeah, we're having Mappers Quest, Mappers Delay 2. It's going to be on February 2nd, coming up here in a couple weeks, and we'll be interviewing some of the cartographers on there and showing some of their work, and that will be at what time was it, Laerun? I think it was 10:30 Pacific time. That's -8 UTC.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 10:30 or
Something like
10?
that. Yeah, I think it's 11, but
Is it
10:30 for
11?
the participants.
Okay.
But
Anyway, I will put the link in chat.
yep. So we're looking for people that want to watch the show. We kind of have a lineup already of some members that are signed up for the event. We have about 6 different cartographers lined up, maybe a couple more, a couple less. But nonetheless, we have a show lined up for that, and we are working on a women's panel for March. So if you're interested in watching that, we're going to talk to some of our community members that use Fantasy Grounds daily for our community.
That will be on March 15th, which is a Sunday, and it will be at 7 p.m. 0.
Yep.
You'll have to add or subtract to figure out what time that is by you if you don't live in that time zone.
Yep.
But yeah, we've got at least 5 people right now that are going to be talking on the panel, and we hope to get some more answers from some more people that we had invited to join our panel. That should be interesting. I will be so. Yeah, you'll get to know a little about my background and how I got into playing on Fantasy Ground, which is the only way that I play because I feel it's the best.
Okay, so we're going to call it a day, guys. I will talk to you later. We've been going on for over an hour, so.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, everybody. See you around the community. Bye-bye.